Welcome to our first session in managerial economics. This week we set the stage for how economics helps us think critically about how organizations function. We'll explore the foundational concepts of organizational architecture and economic Darwinism. Organizational architecture is not just a fancy term. It's the blueprint that determines who makes decisions, how people are rewarded, and how performance is evaluated. Economic Darwinism introduces a hard truth. Businesses that fail to adapt will not survive. Our Christian worldview compels us to take these tools and apply them ethically and responsibly, designing organizations that create value with integrity. These are the two main learning objectives for this chapter. Every organization faces tough strategic questions. Should we enter new markets? Should we compete on price or quality? Who are our competitors and how do we anticipate their moves? These aren't just surface level questions. They're deeply tied to how we structure our business. For example, if you want to innovate, you might give decision rights to people closest to the customer. Consider how Apple continuously adjusts its pricing and market approach across regions. They don't just throw darts, they use data, market analysis, and economic insight to make informed choices. Think about how you would answer these questions for your own business or ministry idea. Which of these questions do you think is most important to answer first and why? Organizational architecture is made up of three building blocks. First, decision rights. Who has authority and where it lies in hierarchy? Second, reward systems. What behaviors are recognized and incentivized? And third, performance evaluations. How outcomes are tracked and measured. Consider Chick-fil-A. Employees are empowered at the store level, aka decision rights, rewarded for customer service excellence with their reward systems, and evaluated based on guest satisfaction metrics, performance evaluation. These three components must align. If you reward speed but evaluate on customer care, you create confusion and conflict. As Christians, we're called to steward these systems with wisdom, ensuring justice and fairness in how people are managed. Think of another organization you know. How well are these three elements aligned? Economics is ultimately the study of choice under scarcity, and it gives us tools to understand how people respond to incentives. A key insight: people respond to how they are rewarded. If a salesperson is only paid on how much they sell, don't be surprised if they oversell or mislead. This happened with Wells Fargo, where employees created fake accounts to meet quotas. Incentives weren't evil, but they were misaligned. As leaders, we must ask, what behavior am I encouraging with this system? Economic Darwinism tells us that in a competitive world, only the efficient and adaptable survive. Think of businesses like Blockbuster and Kodak. They failed to adapt to streaming and digital photography, respectively. Meanwhile, Netflix and Apple transformed their models and thrived. The principle is simple. If your business structure doesn't support good decision making, your competitors will overtake you. And that's not a tragedy, that's a signal to change. Scripture reminds us in Ecclesiastes 3 that there's a time for everything, including a time to tear down and a time to build. This concept reminds us to build organizations that can endure changing seasons. Benchmarking is the process of looking at what other successful firms do and asking, can we learn from them? But you have to be careful. What works at Toyota may not work at your nonprofit or local business. For example, Lincoln's electric piece rate pay model works because of its culture and its context. That doesn't mean it would work at a creative agency. Benchmarking should be thoughtful, not mindless copying. We must ask ourselves, what practices align with our values, our mission, and our people? We can't just pursue efficiency. We should pursue excellence with integrity. Organizational architectures that last are not created by accident. They're shaped by purpose, refined by pressure, and sustained by adaptability. COVID-19 revealed which organizations could pivot. Churches streamed services, schools went online, and restaurants shifted to takeout. The organizations that survived had systems in place that allowed for flexibility and rapid decision making. In this course, we're not just learning managerial economics. We're learning how to build wise, adaptable, ethical organizations. So what have we learned? First, organizations don't just exist. They're designed, and you are the architect. Economics gives us tools to understand trade-offs, structure incentives, and allocate decision rights. But as Christian leaders, we go further. We ask, how can we structure organizations that honor God, serve people, and create lasting value? Let this be your lens for the rest of the course. Every framework, every model, every case study will evaluate not just for profitability, but for purpose. So, let's begin this journey with curiosity, conviction, and Christ-centered wisdom.